Okay, so what is men's breakfast about? Um, we'll hear more about where it was the beginning was, and then hopefully we carry through some of those things. But it's definitely about getting together and just connecting to over banter or something, making sure that we have a lovely meal for breakfast, then maybe having a Bible reflection and getting together to pray as believers, and then also that through that we have brothers, but also what's lovely is we also want to welcome our sisters, and we want to encourage them. So when we go through life, it's not just brothers, it's also sisters. So we have a couple of things that try to keep us in line. But what I want to move on next is, here's some of the archaeological evidence, so that just make sure we have, so that was the men's breakfast back in Saturday, the 11th of July, 1998, still starting at 8 o'clock in the morning. And then I also had a service from Frank that died about 10 years ago. For our seventh breakfast, we'll hear from Carol, Steve, and James, and their wisdom for us.
I can only tell you things that I can remember, but what Frank did. So Frank and Steve were at New Wine one year, and they went to a men's seminar, and they came back and they said they felt they should start a men's prayer breakfast, which we think they did the next autumn, so that other one's probably the next summer, isn't it? Yeah. So they felt really encouraged to do that, and they decided on a verse that they would use as like a strap line for the men's breakfast. It's in Proverbs 27 verse 17. As iron sharpens iron, this is the version I got. So a friend sharpens a friend. I think they put as a man sharpens a man to make it appropriate. And so they started the breakfast similar the format as you have with the cooked breakfast, which you mostly did the cooking, didn't you?
Yeah.
And then they had a meditation. James, somebody else. Yeah, they'd have the meditation often for somebody in the group. Sometimes they'd have a speaker in, and then they would pray for each other. And the idea when starting out was to reach every man in the church, which is still an ideal to carry out today. But to encourage that, they held different events to reach different men. So they used to hold a men's dinner in a local pub. I think it was in Penn Street or somewhere like that, wasn't it?
We've been there. The first one was in the Greyhound. And that was with Raj Prakasan. He was our first speaker.
Yeah, so they used to do that. They'd arrange with the place to have like a fairly set menu. You know, you had a few choices on it, and then they'd get a function room in the pub, and then they'd people to invite their friends and whatever to come. And they used to do curry nights. Did you do curry nights?
I think that was after.
Was that after later on?
It was later on.
Yeah, and they used to do summer barbecues.
Yeah.
Often, sometimes it was just the men, sometimes it was with the ladies.
Yeah.
And they did a Valentine's dinner, which I've got some proof of that. I'll pass the pictures round for you to have a look at. Frank we did it at the community college. I mean, they all said they enjoyed it, but for me it was hard work because I had to help with all the cooking and get all the food sorted for loads of people. Yeah. And the only other thing I could say is when Frank realised that he would no longer be able to carry this on, he said to me he wanted originally to take it over, which is still encouraging that he's still carrying it on. Yeah.
I don't remember well. The other thing was just his invitational is being able to see people and actually invite them.
Yeah.
To the breakfast. I remember Frank coming out. We just joined the church. I'd like to become in the breakfast.
That's right. We're always asking people, yeah.
Then if anybody's worked in corporate context, he said, I think you have a great opportunity. I think you're going to do great things for the next breakfast. How quickly can you back out?
Not fast enough for Frank.
Not fast enough for Frank.
Yeah. Once he got you in his bear hug, that was it. Yeah, that was it. That was it.
You were in.
You were in.
Carol, when it started, was there any thought of numbers going up, numbers going down? Was it just kind of a commitment, or for the first 10 years, how did that? This is something we're going to do.
We just did it, and whoever turned up.
I don't think there was ever any numbers target to grow. It
No.
was just, it served the people who were there.
Yeah.
And if that was 5, that was okay. And if it was 25, that was okay.
Yeah. Yeah, if it got more than 25, it became a little fraught because I gave Ridgely the formula for the for the quantity that to cook for. How many you could get out of a tin of beans, that type of stuff. So yeah, if it got more than 25, we were on the edge of
stretch it.
We had to stretch it. We had to pray over it. So, but yeah. So going back to the archaeological record, I found, as well as some photographs of some brothers that used to come that are no longer with us, but are in glory. I've got the church used to produce an infusion magazine, which used to be circulated around the local community. It was in the days of Stephen Roger. And there was an article in there. It was about Hilary and I, but there was. I should have brought my glasses. Hang on a minute. But there's one paragraph I'd like to read because it encapsulates why we set the men's breakfast up. It's hard to make friends these days. Hardly anyone lives near their work, so it's difficult to socialise with work colleagues. Because I was, that's what I was finding, and my guess is it's even worse now. I mean, changes all over the world. So you have to find other means of making friends. That's partly why Frank, Philippe, and I set up the men's prayer breakfast. We wanted to provide somewhere where men could get to know each other, build friendships, pray, encourage, and support each other. The 20 or so men who come along do seem to open up to each other and talk about things that matter to them: jobs, family issues, and going back to 2004 when this was published, problems with teenagers, because that's where mine were. And that sort of thing. So, and that really what Frank, when we came away from the thing in UI, we just wanted somewhere where people could get together and they could open up, because none of us like to talk about our personal stuff, and we tried to. We used to encourage people to do prayer triplets and study group, mini study groups and stuff like that. And I know that you still do stuff outside.
Yeah, we still have a Monday morning
Bible study. And I know Viv does lots of stuff with different people, so it's still taking place, but not necessarily in the format that we first envisioned it. But it still happens, so it's good. And we're very grateful that you carried it on, because, Frank was ill, and then I was ill in 2014, and then I just had to pull out from everything. Things were much better. So anyway, thank you.
I know Gary Bell also was.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever done that situation where you volunteers. You don't step forward, but everybody steps back.
Yeah, and Andy Scott was here for a while.
No, he's now become a worldwide dancer. So he's always going to different dance locations. But he's Andy Scott. Yeah. So he's still in touch and all that sort of stuff. He's unfortunate writing.
I've got a picture here of one of our first barbecues that we had up in the alleyway between the churches. And I'm at one end, Frank's doing his usual burnt offerings at this end. And there's a guy in the middle that I don't even recognise. And I can't place him. So if anybody recognises him, that would be wonderful. And I've got some other photographs. Hilary was, at one time, she was into creative memories, scrapbooking. So she'd actually cut these up to go in some form of album, but it's never got that far. and they were just sitting on top of the thing. So there are a couple of people here that are in that.
You look a lot younger.
Yeah, we all look a lot younger.
It's Photoshop. It's Photoshop.
But like I said, there's quite a lot of guys there that have
Been
since
promoted to glory, haven't
been
they?
promoted to glory.
That's nice.
So how did you go? So you and Frank get back in Spring Harvest.
Yeah,
New wine.
New wine. Sorry, new wine. All right, we had this vision. How did you rope James into this? How did you get roped into James?
They were younger men, weren't they?
Yeah, but we were. Yes, because Frank and I were 20 odd years ago in our 40s.
So the three of us used to meet every week. And I was trying to work out when we started. Now, we moved into the village in 98, so I guess it would have been somewhere around 98.
Yeah, because when we first started, you were still living up
That way,
Nickel Road, and then you moved to where you are now.
Yeah. So somewhere around 98, we started meeting every Thursday night, I think, or every Tuesday night. No, every Thursday night.
Every Thursday night was.
And you've achieved something that Frank never did today, originally, because despite Frank's many attempts to get me to speak, I maintained my role in the kitchen for many, many years. I don't know if you ever got press gang to speak, Steve.
Maybe once.
Maybe once.
Not my forte. Anyway.
But, yeah, we used to hang out in the kitchen doing the food bit.
Yeah.
Frank used to do the front of house bit.
Yes.
And that was the unwritten rule, which worked for well over a decade.
Yes.
A decade and a half.
Yeah.
So how did you get? Were you already friends with Steve and Frank, or
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, but it's all a bit
Yeah.
in the midst of time.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I was going to New Wine, New Carroll, because our kids are the same age. John, our youngest, is the same age as David, and they were good friends. So that's how it all sort of
Something else.
And Frank and I, we've been not only at New Wine, but we've been to a couple of other many conferences. We went up to Sheffield once to see a guy, and they had 400 guys in this conference, and then this speaker came across from the States. He'd just written a book, the thoughts that men think, or something like that. It was, but what really impressed me, I was thinking about it when I came down, was that there were 400 men worshipping Jesus. And the depth of sound, it still makes me tingle, because it was absolutely fantastic just to be with all those guys. And over the years we've tried to do bits and pieces, some have been successful, some not so successful.
So James, how did you find out your gifts in the kitchen, or have you always had those? You just using them for God's work, or how did you go? Because you can obviously continue on with for a long period of time until you were called to save lives to do something else. But what's your impressions?
I think I've always had the ability to make a fry up. Essential training for life.
Yeah.
But no, I think there was something about the fellowship as well in the kitchen as well, and just sort of living week by week. I just want to share one thing, which was a piece of Frank's wisdom, which always lives with me. I remember there was a time when I was thinking, should I be moving? Should I be doing something different? Should I try and change job? And Frank said, James, the Lord can shut doors if he wants you to move. So if you're not seeing an obvious opening, don't panic, just keep going. And if he wants you to do something different, he's quite capable of shutting doors. And that was a really helpful piece of advice for somebody who was kind of umming and ahhing about, should I change, should I not change? So we just rested in the situation and worked out.
Yeah, because especially at the time when you were trying to set up this sustainability stuff, Yes, you felt that it was the right thing to do, and it definitely has been the right thing to do. But at the time, nobody wanted to know that sort of stuff. But you felt it was, and we kept praying about it, and you kept getting, you need to do this. So, yeah.
But one thing I remember, Frank came home once from the, you probably remember this, he came home from the prayer breakfast and they'd been talking about temptation. And Freddie Beattie was there, and he was like in his 80s then. And Fred came home. He said, I'm really shocked. He said, Fred's dead. He says, I'm still tempted with things.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's two things that resonated with. One was I was listening to a movie from Amy Carmichael, and she's a missionary. It was a young child. She had blue eyes. She had brown eyes, so she wanted blue eyes, something like that. And she prayed for a while. Tomorrow morning I want to have blue eyes. She had brown eyes. And she didn't have blue eyes the next day. It kept on being brown. And then after a while, her mother said, when the Lord says no, that's still an answer.
Mm-hmm.
Which is that aspect of what maybe sometimes the answer is. He has given you an answer, but the answer might be no. And the other thing that sort of reflected as I was thinking about this is when Martin Luther had come through and went through the Gospels and came to the aspect of it's by faith alone, not by works. And he wanted to reform the Catholic Church. He in no way wanted to actually set up his own denomination in any sort of way. But he was brought before the court, and he basically, his stance as is that here I stand. I can do no other, but on the truth or whatever. So whenever you've got a particular call, whatever you're doing, you say, well, actually, the Lord's put me here for a particular sense of here I stand. Well, I can do no other. It was sort of the sense of when everybody was moving away, it was sort of like a conversation with God to say, who else would be taking this on for a season? And I've heard lots of, Carol, you were very encouraging to me when you came up here just a couple of days ago, really. I think it was the last church meeting, and you just said, I just want to thank you for continuing on. Right, as it started. And that was just a bit of encouragement. Everybody needs encouragement at certain times. So I had other people come and say, well, when my husband's retiring, we're really looking forward to getting involved with men's breakfast. I don't think it should be just when you're retired, but the fact that other people might be, well, what's the next generation going to be? And I think we did some gathering in the last picture. We had some folks in their 20s who were with us, and that's my prayer that we would have people in each of the generations.
Yeah.
So we can actually serve them, help them where they're at, whatever that might be.
You had a few younger ones, didn't you?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
James,
well, not
James-
just James.
Andrew Bell.
Sam Young.
yeah, they're Andrew Bell. Yeah.
I think it was. I'm not sure if that was Kevin Popely.
Well, might be.
A younger Kevin
It
Popely.
could well
because
have
the
been.
thing is, we remember. I might be wrong, but it looks a little.
I thought it was Andy Kingston Smith, but it's not. It's not.
I think it looks a little bit like him.
I
I think what's amazing, look at those pictures, is the people that have run their race.
Yes.
You guys have spurred each other on, and now half of them are in Crawley.
Yes. Yeah.
And yet they've run their race.
Yeah.
And this group has supported that, has encouraged it, has spurred each other on, has held each other up at different points. Has been there in the happy moments, has been there in the tough stuff, and yet they've run their race.
Yes.
Finished in